if you guys are ready, that would be great.
Yeah. If somebody has the text for the chanting, I think Vaishali was going to post that.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Just mute everybody. Yeah, you there, Geeta?
Yes, Bante.
Awesome, very good. Okay, so we'll do our Pali recitation now. So as always, we'll have everyone put your hands up at Anjali as a sign of respect for the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. You can follow along with us even though you're muted. Geeta will be my co-respondent on everyone's behalf. So thank you, Geeta, in advance. And if you have an image of the Buddha in front of you, you can bow to it 3 times. If not, you can visualize the image of the Buddha in your mind and bow 3 times. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay. Oh, can we just get the chanting back up?
It's up, Bante Mangala.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Okay, good start. Okay. So let's start with Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
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 Okay, homage to the Buddha. Iti piso bhagava araham.
Iti piso bhagava arahang
Samma sambuddho.
samma sambuddho
Vichacharana sampanno.
vichacharana sampanno
Sugato lokavidu.
sugato lokavidu
Anuttaro puresa dhamma sarati.
anuttaro purisa dhamma sarati
Satta deva manusanam.
satta deva manussanang
Buddho bhagavati.
Buddho Bhagavati.
Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa samma sambuddhassa.
Ye cha buddha tita cha.
Ye cha Buddha atita cha.
Ye cha buddha anagata.
Ye cha Buddha anagata.
Pachupanna cha ye buddha.
Pachupanna cha ye Buddha.
Ahang vandami sabada.
Ahang vandami sabada.
Nati me saranang anyang.
Nati me saranang anyang.
Buddho me saranang varang.
Buddho me saranang varang.
Etena sacha vajena.
Etena sacha vajjena.
Hotu me jaya mangalam.
Hotu me jaya mangalam.
Uttamangena vandeham.
Uttamangena vandeham.
Padapangsu varuttamang.
Padapansu varuttamang.
Buddheyo kalito doso.
Buddheyo kalito doso.
Buddho kamatu tang mamang.
Buddho kamatu tang mamang.
Buddhang yavani bana paryantam.
Buddhang yavani bana pariyantang.
Saranang gacchami.
Saranang gacchami.
Okay, homage to the Dhamma. Swakato bhagavata dhammo.
Swakato bhagavata dhammo.
Sanditiko akaliko.
Sandittiko akaliko.
Ehipassiko opanayiko.
Ehipassiko opanaiko.
Pachattang veditabo vinyuhiti.
Paccatang veditappo vinyuhiti.
Namo tassa niyanikassa dhammasa.
Namo tassa niyanikassa dhammassa.
Ye cha dhamma titacha.
Ye cha dhamma atita cha.
Ye cha dhamma anagata.
Ye cha dhamma anagata.
Pachupanna cha ye dhamma.
Pacchupanna cha ye dhamma.
Ahang vandami sabada.
Ahang vandami sabada.
Nati me saranang anyang.
Nati me saranang anyang.
Dhammo me saranang varang.
Dhammo me saranang varang.
Etena sacha vajena.
Etena sacha vajena.
Hotu te jaya mangalam.
Hotu me jaya mangalam.
Uttamangena vandeham.
Uttamangena vandeham.
Tammancha dividang varang.
Tammancha dividang varang.
Dhammeyo kalito doso.
Dhammeyo kalito doso.
Dhammo kamatu tang mamang.
Dhammo kamatu tang mamang.
Dhammang yavani bana paryantam.
Dhammang yavani bana pariyantang.
Saranang gacchami.
Saranang gacchami.
Okay, homage to the Sangha. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Samichi patipanno bhagavato savaka sangho.
Sami Jipatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho
Yadidang chattari purisa yugani.
Yadidang Chattari Purisa Yugani
Atta purisa pugala.
Atta Purisa Pugala
Esa bhagavato savaka sangho.
Esa Bhagavato Savaka Sangho
Ahuneyo pahuneyo.
Ahuneyo Pahuneyo
Dakineyo anjali karaniyo.
Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo
Anuttarang punyaketang lokasati.
Anuttarang Punyakettang Lokasati
Namo tassa atta ariya bhugala mahasanghasa.
Namo tassa Atta Arya Pugala Mahasangasa
Ye cha sangha titacha.
Ye cha Sangha Atita cha
Ye cha sangha anagata.
Ye cha Sangha Anagata
Pachupanna cha ye sangha.
Pachupanna cha Ye Sangha
Ahang vandami sabada.
Ahang Vandami Sabada
Nati me saranang anyang.
Nati me saranang anyang
Sango me saranang varang.
Sango me saranang varang
Etena satcha vajena.
Etena sacha vajjena
Hotu me jaya mangalam.
Hotu me jaya mangalang
Uttamangena vandeham.
Uttamangena vandeham
Sangancha duveduttamam.
Sangancha duviduttamang
Sangeyo kalito doso.
Sangeyo kalito doso
Sango kamatutang mamam.
Sango kamatutang mamang
Sangang yavani bana variantang.
Sangang yavani bana pariyantang
Saranang gacchami.
Saranang gacchami
Okay, homage to the three symbols. Vandami chetiyang sabang.
Vandami chetiyang sapang
Sabbatane supatititang.
Sappatane supatititang
Saririka dhatu mahabodhim.
Saririka dhatu mahabodhin
Buddharupang sakalang sada.
Buddharupang sakalang sada
Imaya dhammanudhamma patipattiya.
Imaya dhamma patipattiya
Buddhang pujemi.
Buddhang pujemi
Imaya dhammanudhamma patipattiya.
Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipattiya
Dhammang pujemi.
Dhammang Pujimi
Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipattiya.
Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipattiya
Sanghang pujemi.
Sanghang Pujimi.
Okay.
Sadhu,
Is that
sadhu,
it?
sadhu.
Oh,
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
No, thank you, Geeta. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, so again, good evening, everybody. Originally, I was planning to give a talk on what are called the 11 benefits of the practice of loving kindness meditation, which come down in these suttas. But that is really the 11 benefits for those who develop what is called the liberation of mind through loving kindness, which is the deep samadhi of loving kindness, a rather advanced level of achievement. So rather than speak about that, I thought I would give just some practical pointers in the development of metta or loving kindness, which are relevant to us in the more fundamental stage of practice. Okay, so the first point I want to make is that metta, the loving kindness meditation, and along with the other Brahma Viharas, is a simple but powerful method of transforming our character, transforming the nature of our mind. So what is our character? Why do we have our different distinctive characters? The way a character is formed is as a product of our thoughts, our attitudes, of our emotions that have built up from infancy and childhood right up to the present. Under the influence of sort of materialistic ways of thinking, we're inclined to believe that our character is something fixed and unchangeable. Maybe it's almost entirely determined by the genes we inherit from our parents. That's one point of view. Or else it's said that it's our childhood upbringing that determines our character, or our social environment, the environmental and social influences to which we're exposed. It seems that I got invisible for a few moments. Now, from the Buddha's point of view, well, these things have a role to play. A character is not something fixed and immutable, but the character is a kind of byproduct of all of our thoughts, attitudes, emotions, which have been developing and accumulating over the years and the decades. And so the character forms something of a heavy mass that comes to us. But this heavy mass is something that can be changed, it can be transformed. And that is sort of the purpose, at least one of the purposes of practicing Buddhism, is to transform our character by training. And so even those who attain the supreme enlightenment of Buddhahood started off maybe many, many lives ago as just very ordinary people, just doing maybe an office workers, day laborers, bank clerks, construction workers. And then something happened to plant in their minds the idea of becoming a Buddha. And over many, many lives, that they just didn't become a Buddha just by chance, by good luck. They just happened to be there in the right place at the right time. But rather, this was a result of deliberate effort, deliberate cultivation over many, many lives, working at, we say, a minute by minute and second by second, moment by moment process of transforming their thoughts, their attitudes, and their emotions. There's a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, it's sutta number 19, called the Dveda Vitakka Sutta, the sutta on the two classes of thoughts, in which the Buddha explains the practice that one of the practices that he undertook during the period when he was striving for enlightenment. And what he did was to distinguish his thoughts into two categories. On one side, he put the unwholesome thoughts, thoughts of sensual craving, thoughts of resentment or ill will, and thoughts of harming others. On the other side, he put the good thoughts, the wholesome thoughts, the thoughts of renunciation, the thoughts of loving kindness, and the thoughts of compassion. And when the unwholesome thoughts would arise, he would reflect on their dangers, the drawback in those thoughts. And when the wholesome thoughts would arise, he would recognize the benefits and the blessings in those thoughts. And what he says at the end of that section, he says that what we frequently think and ponder becomes the direction of our mind. So if we frequently ponder and think unwholesome thoughts, those thoughts gain momentum. They sort of weave together, and that becomes the texture of our mind. Our mind becomes just a mass of unwholesome thoughts. If we frequently think wholesome thoughts and generate wholesome thoughts, those thoughts gain in force and become the natural tendency, the natural inclination of the mind. Those thoughts link together, become woven together, and make up the texture of our mind. So when we recognize this, we could see that we can transform ourselves. And the practice of loving kindness or the other Brahma Viharas are like taking beautiful threads of very nice colors, red and yellow, green and blue, and weaving them together, just like you use threads of wool to make a beautiful sweater. So we use these beautiful threads to make beautiful mind, a beautiful character. And according to the Buddha's teaching, the thoughts that go to make up our character don't come to an end with the end of this life. But through our thoughts, we build up mental habits, mental formations, which make our character, which goes on from this life to future lives. So the character that we acquire in future lives is the product of the character that we've built up in this life through changing and transforming the direction of our mind. Okay, but having said this, we have to recognize that the development, the transformation of character through the development of the Brahma Viharas is a slow, gradual, and sometimes difficult process of cultivation. It's not that you just make up the decision, I'm going to become a person full of loving kindness, full of compassion, full of sympathetic joy, full of equanimity, and then immediately your wish will be fulfilled. If it was that simple, we would have a world full of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arahants, but it is not so simple. We have to work in a very gradual and systematic way to transform the mind. But with the guidance of the Buddha's teachings and the methods of practice that have come down in the tradition, we can make those changes. We can make those transformations. And when we start to practice metta in the early stages, I make a distinction, and this is an important distinction that I make myself, between what I call artificial metta and genuine metta. Now, artificial metta is not a bad thing, but when we start trying to develop loving kindness, especially using the method that I explained in the morning, developing these wishes, may so-and-so be well, happy, safe, may all their good purposes be fulfilled, and taking the different people in our mental visualization, we might start thinking, wow, I've been doing this and it just ain't working. It just ain't clicking. I'm doing this. It's just like a mechanical repetition. Of course, you shouldn't do it just as a mechanical repetition. But if you're trying to do it sincerely, but you don't feel the loving kindness swelling up like a big, beautiful wave from the heart, don't think that it's a failure, that you're a failure. But rather, we have to start off with the artificial loving kindness by using the method and keep on working at it, trying to generate the feeling, the emotion, the attitude that corresponds to the words. And as we do it over time, there'll come a time, sooner or later, where it's like reaching a clearing in the wilderness, just sort of temporarily, a spurt, a wave of that, or a ray of that real loving kindness will arise and encourage us to continue. In my own personal experience, and I've mentioned this morning, like the time before I became a monk and even my early years or a year or two as a monk, I had this tendency always to be looking for the faults of others, always complaining to others about the faults of still other people. And if I didn't have anybody to complain about their faults to, I would be mumbling and grumbling into my mind, why is this person behaving like this? Why is that person showing those kind of character traits? Why is this one doing this? That person should change. I have to talk to them. I have to get them and speak to them. So that was the way my mind would work. And when I became a monk in Sri Lanka, I was practicing in a little cottage at my teacher's monastery. And initially, I was using the meditation of mindfulness of breathing. But over time, I found that my mind was getting rather dry, doing in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, which is itself is a very beautiful and effective meditation subject. But I was doing it exclusively, and so my mind was getting a bit dry and brittle. So I started to look in the meditation treatise, the Visuddhimagga, for some other meditation subjects, and I found the instructions on the loving kindness meditation and started to practice. And again, I felt that the practice was going in a rather mechanical, automatic way. I was using the formulas, but nothing was really happening. But then just one day, and I remember it was when I was using the loving kindness in a walking meditation. And I took one of my uncles, I still remember, as the subject. I was in Sri Lanka, he was in New York, and I was walking back and forth, doing the metta meditation with him as the object. And a deep wave of genuine wish for his well-being and happiness just rose up in my heart. And that gave me the encouragement to continue. Yeah, I want to now speak about two keys that I found useful in developing the loving kindness meditation. one, and this is what I use when using the method of going through the individuals with the formula. And this is what I call shifting one's sense of identity. So usually we sort of identify with the person that we take to be I or me, and we regard the other as, of course, as a different person. And in that way, we have this sort of subject-object relationship, even when trying to develop loving kindness. I am the one trying to generate the loving kindness, and that's the object of my loving kindness. But what I found to be the useful aid to generating and strengthening that feeling is, instead of taking the subject-object relationship, turning it into the subject-subject relationship, which means recognizing the other person as a subject of experience. And then you don't have to be able to read the mind of the other person. I don't have that ability, not the psychic power of reading the minds of others, but you try to feel the world from the standpoint of the other person, as though you are that other person. And so this is how, when you come across the person who is, we call the troublemaker, we'll maybe starting with the neutral person, the mere acquaintance, and then moving on to the troublemaker. With the neutral person, the clerk in the supermarket, the mailman, the neighbor that you just say hello to when you pass them on the street. We just look at them almost like an object, but you put yourself into their subjectivity and reflect that, suppose I were that person, then maybe I have a wife and children, and I'm concerned with the well-being of my wife and children. I have such and such a job. Maybe I like it. Maybe I don't like it. I have these bills to pay. Maybe I have some health condition, or my wife or children have some health problems. And so you start to look at the world from the standpoint of the other person, and that builds up this kind of empathy, identification with the other. And then on the basis of that identification, one can then come back into your own shoes, your own skin, and generate the loving kindness towards that person, understanding what it is like to be the other person. And then starting, with individuals, then you could extend that until you take like the whole country or the whole world and generate this, or bring a kind of identification with everybody in the country, everybody in the world, and then on that basis, generate the loving kindness. So that is sort of one key that I found useful. The other key, and sometimes I use one, sometimes the other, it also involves a shift in how you look at the other person. But this is what I base this on, a line that comes in the famous Metta Sutta, the Buddha's hymn or poem of loving kindness. Mata yata niyam putang ayusa ekaputang anurake evampi sababute su manasang bhavaye aparimanam. Just as a mother would protect her only child with her own life, in such a way, one should develop a mind of loving kindness towards all beings. So I find it useful to reflect and to consider that all these people, or maybe starting with the individuals towards whom one is trying to develop loving kindness, this person, though they're the stranger, just the neighbor, even the troublemaker, but that person, with the flip of a switch of karma, that person could have been my own son or daughter, or my own brother or sister, or if it's an older person, now it would have to be a very old person, could have been my mother or father. And so was us looking at the other person instead of being a stranger or a troublemaker. These are just this is just my son or daughter, or my brother or sister in a different physical form. And then one can extend that way of thinking to the entire world so that you look at all beings, maybe starting with all human beings, that they're all the older ones, my parents, the really younger ones, my children, the ones roughly in my own age group, my brothers and sisters, just in different physical forms. And so these are just a couple of sort of little techniques that I found, experimental techniques to help to develop the loving kindness. And another useful technique that I found, or sort of asset in developing loving kindness, is to recognize that you don't have to develop loving kindness only when you're in your meditation room or your little meditation place, sitting with your legs crossed, but you can use this meditation subject in many circumstances of your daily life. Like, for example, well, it's been like about 1.5 years since I've been in New York City to ride on the subway because of the pandemic. But when I go into New York, when I have to ride on the train or the subway, everybody is sort of looking at usually now they're looking at their cell phones or reading a newspaper or just sitting blankly. But I'm sitting there thinking, may all of the people on this train be well, may they all be happy, may they all be safe. And then when you're walking down the street, passing person after person after person, towards each one, you just look up a little bit and generate the thought, may this one be well and happy, may that one be well and happy. So in this way, you're building up the loving kindness in your daily activities. At the workplace, if there's a break, like a coffee break, you could be sitting there sipping your coffee, but generating the thought, may all of the people in this office be well, may they all be happy. And you'll find sometimes, if it's really successful, you'll see that people's attitude towards you, your fellow workers and so on, start to change. People pick up the vibrations. You don't tell them, I've been sitting there drinking my coffee, directing thoughts of loving kindness to you. But over time, people will start to pick it up and their attitudes towards you will change and become much friendlier. Okay, so those are a few hints in developing loving kindness. Now let's see, I think what's going on in the schedule. Oh, I think we've come.
The next thing after your talk was to be a short video, Bhante, unless we want to add something else.
No, then we just go right to the video.
Okay. All right. Well, I really enjoyed what you had to say, Bhante. As usual, it was very instructional and educational.
Yeah,
and
maybe just
affirming.
Let me just add one more thing. I just want to show you something of the benefits of practicing loving kindness for many, many years by people who are very advanced practitioners. I want to show you the way it even transforms one's facial features so that when you look at a person, you don't even know that person, but you could feel and see the loving kindness in their face. I had some of these, I collected some of these. I'm not sharing the screen. Let me share the screen.
Yeah, we're seeing you.
Okay. Okay, so these are some very accomplished meditators. So this is a monk. He's not alive anymore. His name is Maha Gosananda. He was a Cambodian monk who became like the leader of the monastic order, one of the leaders in Cambodia, a country that had gone through almost the Holocaust in the 1970s. And you could just see from his face radiating loving kindness. You don't even have to know that he's practiced it, but you just look and you see the loving kindness in his face. Yeah, this is a contemporary Burmese meditation master, Pa Auk Soyador. Again, you could see the loving kindness coming out from his face. This is one of his disciples. She is a nun named Dipankara Sayale. Again, she is a real master of the loving kindness meditation. And then this is a Tibetan monk named Gachin Rimpoche. He was quite remarkable. He was trapped in Tibet during the Chinese takeover, and he was tortured and tormented and brutally treated by the Chinese. And he had only one fear during that period. He said his one fear was that he would lose his compassion for the Chinese military who were tormenting him. Eventually he was released, and I think he's living in Arizona now. And then, of course, this is the Dalai Lama, who is, of course, deeply grounded in loving kindness and compassion. So you could see the way developing these qualities transforms the body, transforms the face, to make the face itself an expression of loving kindness. Okay, now I think we can go to the video.
Thank you for sharing that, Bhante. I just want to say, I want to be that when I grow up. So, okay, Yvonne will be showing us a video now, PowerPoint rather. The Centro de Trabalho Indigenista has been working with indigenous peoples in Brazil since 1979, helping them get legal title to their land, and then helping them manage those lands sustainably in a way that they can support their communities healthfully, their economic and cultural well-being. We are supporting an agricultural project with the Ava Guarani in Paraná state of Brazil. So now the Centro de Trabalho Indigenista.
The CTI, or Center for Indigenous Work, has been serving indigenous peoples in Brazil since 1979. With support from BGR, CTI has implemented the Kiringboy Nyamungaru, or Feeding Children, project. Guarani peoples historically occupied territory in what is now southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. To understand the Guarani planting calendar, remember that Brazil is in the southern hemisphere, so December is midsummer, and Guarani territory occupies tropical and subtropical regions. The Feeding Children project uses the Mutirão system, with work teams from each village forming under female leadership to prepare the land and plant heritage crops, including corn, beans, sweet potatoes, squash, and bananas, as well as many other native plant varieties. Sweet potatoes will sprawl along terraces and bananas will fill in a hillside. As has been the case with many indigenous peoples, the adoption of modern diets has had an extremely bad effect on their health. And this project is helping the Guarani achieve their long-term goal of reviving ancient varieties of crops to ensure greater genetic diversity and provide more resistance to climatic change. Spirituality is not separate from the rest of life for the Guarani. Their traditional agriculture is informed by spiritual practice, including meetings in the prayer house. The project is not only helping feed the children, it is teaching them how to reclaim their land and use it to produce healthy food crops. Children and mothers work side by side, planting, tending, and gathering food. Jetta is the leader of the project in São Paulo. Following the traditional Guarani practice, she is known by one name. She's devoted to reintroducing organic native produce to the diet of her people. CTI is very grateful for the support BGR has provided to improve the nutrition and health of the Guarani.
Thank you, Yvonne. Bhante was talking to us about putting ourselves in others' shoes. And perhaps we could work on putting ourselves in the shoes of someone who seems very, very different from us, like people of a native tribe, one of the many that has been persecuted nearly out of existence in the Americas. But they have survived, and with the help of BGR, they will survive for even longer. We now will have a period of metta practice. And Bhante, will you be guiding us for that?
And this period will be divided into 2 sessions, or the session will be divided into 2 periods. So it's roughly 40 minutes in length. I think we actually have 45 minutes. So we'll start, I will start the first period doing the directed form of the loving kindness meditation. That is the person, the kind directed towards individual persons. And then halfway through, then I will turn it over to Aya Dhammadipa, and she will continue with the radiation method of the metta meditation. Okay, so let us take our comfortable and convenient sitting position. Okay, the back, the most important thing in the sitting position is for the back to be straight, but not stiff or rigid. The weight of the torso should be supported by the pelvis and the buttocks against the seat. And you can feel the body as a kind of meeting ground, I say, of 2 sources of energy. The energy of the earth coming up through the buttocks, then through the spine up to the heart, and the energy of the sky or the heavens coming down through the head, the skull, and then down to the heart. And the 2 energies meeting and holding the body upright, but very soft, relaxed, and gentle. Hands might be placed on the lap, right hand over the left, thumbs lightly touching. Or if you prefer, the hands can be kept on the knees or the thighs. Nose perpendicular to the navel. Eyes lightly closed. And then let the attention descend to the region of the heart. And settle there just for a moment, for a couple of moments. Maybe you can feel a kind of soft and warm and gentle energy in that region. Okay, now we're going to go through the person-to-person method. And again, I will recite briefly the formula, the 4 phrases. You use the formula in whatever way works best for you, trying to generate the feeling expressed by the words of the formula. We'll go through the persons, beginning with yourself. See yourself in your mind's eye, smiling and happy. And then generate towards yourself the wish, may I be well. That's healthy of body and mind. May I be truly happy. May I be safe from all harm. And may all my good aims in life be fulfilled. Okay, in the silence, you work on developing, using the formula to stir up, to generate the loving kindness. Okay, now we move to the person that we call the good friend, the wise advisor, the benefactor, the wise guide, person that you have kind of a little distance from, that you have some respect for, but affection and gratitude towards the person. See that person in your mind's eye and generate towards them the wish, may this good person be well. May they be happy, truly happy. May they be safe from all dangers. And may all of their good aims in life be fulfilled. Okay, now we move on to the very close person. It could be very dear friend, close relative, but again, not husband or wife, not one's own children, some other relative, like it could be brother or sister or cousin or very close friend. See them in your mind's eye and generate the wish. May this good person, this dear person, be well. May they be truly happy. May they be safe from all danger. And may all their good aims in life be fulfilled. Okay, now we move to the person that we call the mere acquaintance. the neighbor, the person that maybe is clerk in the supermarket, the postman, the person that you don't have any real relationship with, but you just have a nodding acquaintance with them. See that person in your mind's eye. And this takes a little effort. You have to sort of feel that person as a real, like say, a real subjective experience with their own world, their own concerns, their hopes, their fears, their desire for avoiding suffering and achieving happiness. And then on that basis, develop towards that person the wish, may this good person be well, may they be truly happy, may they be safe from all dangers, and may all of their good aims in life be fulfilled. It takes patience for the loving kindness to arise. Just keep on using the formula in the way that works best. Okay, now we bring in the person that we'll call the troublemaker, the aggressive person, the hostile person, or it could be somebody, as I said, a public figure that you just have a dislike for. And recognize, again, this is a human being just like yourself, also with their own wish for well-being and happiness, even though they pursue it in a rather distorted way. So recognize this, recognizing this, generate the wish. May this good person be well. May they be truly happy. May they be safe from all dangers. And may all their good aims in life be fulfilled. Negative thoughts towards that person might naturally arise, but just let those thoughts come and go and keep on returning to the words, the phrases that help to stir up a kind of sympathy and a feeling of kindness towards that person. Okay, now we'll turn it over to the guiding of the meditation to Aya Dhammadippa, who will move us towards the radiation style of practice.
Thank you, Bhante. All right, so picking up right where you are. Perhaps there's some bright quality in the mind, or some warm feeling. And you might imagine that feeling of metta, that warmth or that brightness, as a light that begins to gather in the center of your heart. Imagining metta as a kind of energy, a kind of brightness. And using the breath to help gather that energy together. Putting your hand at the center of your chest, if that helps you to gather the energy of metta, that beautiful, bright feeling. And just as if you were blowing on a spark, on some kind of glowing ember, you can imagine your in-breath is brightening that light each time. A sphere of beautiful brightness gathering there in your heart center area. It naturally getting a little brighter with each in-breath. Oh, metta, the light of metta right there in your heart center. Imagining that you're nourishing it with your breath, that warmth. That light getting a little bit brighter. A little bit stronger. And then knowing that the light naturally wants to flow outward in all directions. That orb of loving kindness glowing. So brightening it with the in-breath and letting it flow with the out-breath. Knowing that metta is a kind of light that passes through all things without harm. It just naturally flows right through your body and beyond. And now taking each direction in turn. The light of metta flowing boundlessly in front of you. No need to strain or push in any way, just letting it naturally flow. Doesn't matter whether it goes near or far, it's immeasurable. And now metta flowing to the right of you. Each out-breath a flowing of the light of metta. And now imagining metta flowing behind you. The metta boundlessly flowing behind you. Remembering to brighten the light with the in-breath and let it flow on the out-breath. That warm light now flowing to the left of you. getting brighter and stronger with the inhalation. And flowing just as far as it can go on the exhalation. And now light above you, passing all the way through your body up and above you. Naturally passing without harm as far as it can go. Again, brightening with the in-breath, strengthening that light of metta, and then letting it flow through you and downward. Boundless metta below you. And now with metta flowing in all the directions, taking a deep in-breath and really brightening that light, strengthening it so that it flows outward. Returning to the people, one of the people that you shared metta with earlier in the meditation, if you lose the thread or get too sleepy, bringing their image to mind. So again, just brightening that light of metta with the in-breath and letting it flow boundlessly on the out breath. Perhaps that metta can fill your whole body. Perhaps that metta can fill your mind. And now coming to the last few minutes of the meditation. Just observing the space filled with the light of metta. Whatever space that might be. And now with the last few exhalations, allowing all of that metta to flow as far as it can go, completely flowing out of you.
Thank you, Ayatamadeepa and Bhante. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. So I
Now we
think
have a question
uh,
session. Mhm.
mhm. So we'll do Q&A as we did before. You can raise your hand, your blue hand, your Zoom hand. Okay. So we have a few hands raised, and I don't know, Bhante, do you want to go ahead and field the questions, or? You're muted. Sorry, Venerable. You're still on mute.
Bhante,
Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, the first hand I saw up is Anne Schmidt.
Hi, thank you both very much. I have a specific question. I'm studying the Satipatthana Sutra online at the moment with Bhikkhu Nalio, and I'm interested to know how you would use metta in conjunction with the ill will that is one of the conditions and one of the states of mind. And I wonder if you have any specifics on that. I mean, it seems to me that would be very useful.
Yeah, but the method of metta and the Brahma Viharas, it's a different system from the method of the Satipatthana Sutta. Though the Satipatthana Sutta, in the section on the 5 hindrances,
Yeah.
it says that one understands each hindrance, in this case, ill will, one understands, let's see, how ill will arises, what are the conditions for ill will, how ill will is abandoned, and how it's prevented from arising in the future. So generally, like in the Satipatthana system, when a particular mental state arises, like ill will, the primary way to deal with it is to make it an object of observation and then use some energy to dispel it or to go on observing it. But when you understand that ill will is arising, if you see that it's arising habitually, then outside the context of the Satipatthana system of practice, then you would see that to overcome that ill will, to sort of dismantle it at the more fundamental level, you would bring in and develop the loving kindness practice as the direct antidote to ill will.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Thomas.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. I had a question. When we're practicing the, I guess the multiple people on our own without someone guiding us with kind of a timing, how do you suggest figuring out the timing of it? Like some kind of a meditation timer?
No, yeah.
To move between which people, or how do we do that?
Yeah, no, I don't suggest using a timer, because then your mind gets obsessed with looking at the timer or having to sort of anticipate the timer making its chime sound. You just use a formula for what you feel to be a comfortable amount of time, just to sort of approximating. And I'm using these units of roughly 5 minutes so that we move through all of the persons in the time limit that I have. But if you're practicing on your own and you come across that one of the people is you feel that you need more time for that person, you devote the time to that person.
Okay.
If the metta arises quickly and easily with another person, then you don't have to devote so much time to that person.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Xiaolan.
Thank you, Aya and Bante.
Yeah.
So I have been practicing metta meditation for quite some time because I used to be very anger prone and also used to have severe depressive episodes. And those are largely gone. But my issue now is that because radiating light is somehow very easy for me. So from time to time, I actually have to stop myself from practicing metta in the form of radiating light, because as soon as I close my eyes, there's this blinding bright light in my head that's actually disturbing my sleep. Like even when I'm lying in bed, like as soon as I close my eyes, this bright, very blinding bright light. And so I'm wondering if you have any suggestion to deal with that.
You.
Well, I would say, first of all, that, as we did in the process earlier today, not this particular meditation that I just did just now, but the earlier one today, that you could practice seeing the energy of metta dissipating, right? Seeing the light also dissipate, and start to practice with that the light itself, or the energy itself, can soften, and then you have this spaciousness of mind and maybe a stillness of mind there, right? When that happens. And that's one of the ways that metta and Brahma Viharas transition to concentration, right? Into samadhi. But if you begin to practice with that idea of letting the energy dissipate, then you become more skillful at letting that happen at night too, ideally.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing to do is to be sure that if you're going to practice, if you're going to continue to do the practice, to do all four, to definitely, you need to, it sounds to me like it would be good for you to be cultivating the equanimity as well, because then the equanimity will also sort of settle the energy. Ground, you know what I'm saying? Balance it out a little bit better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Bante, did you have something you want to add there? Or?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, just one. It's not really answering the question, but do you know of the Indian Swami Vivekananda? Famous, he was a famous Indian Swami at the beginning of the 20th century. He had this bright light always present when he would close his eyes to go to sleep. And he assumed that everybody had, this is before he became, just from childhood, he had that. And he always assumed that everybody had that, till he found out that it was quite unique to himself.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Christian is the next person, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then I have a question that came in through another means that I will ask after that, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
yeah, thank you so much. So in the previous session and in this session as well, on the out breath, when you mentioned the feeling of loving kindness going outward, I kind of had this feeling, and you kind of mentioned it later on in this meditation, of like that warm feeling of loving kindness going throughout the body. And it kind of felt kind of like a saturation a bit. And it kind of reminded me of like some of the writings on the jhanas and like the diffusion of kind of like joy and piti throughout the body. So I was wondering if you can comment when practicing loving kindness and the jhanas, is that something that you kind of saturate your body with?
Yes, I mean, one of the reasons why the Brahma Viharas are a good entry into samadhi is because of that, both piti and sukha. So sometimes called rapture, which, there are various kinds of piti, and they can be extremely ecstatic, and they can be kind of a little more mellow than that, or even very subtle. And similarly with sukha, the happiness. So, but yes, the having that be the beginning of generating that uplift in the mind, and that spaciousness, relaxed sense of the mind is very, very helpful to the transition into the jhana. And if it brings relaxation, and that's the key thing that sometimes people struggle with, is that the joy can be so stimulating that it doesn't settle down into a state that will shift to a composure or collectedness or concentration.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think Ravi Karunaratna.
Oh, wait, but
Ravi?
Carla was going to ask a question that she
okay.
received from a different
That's
way.
right. Yeah,
Bhante, is that okay? We'll
Yes.
do one.
Bhante, thank you, and Aya, thank you very much. I have always had this one little problem in the meditation when I try to think of people anyone who is not towards whom I have sometimes negative feeling, because I feel that I'm encouraging negative thoughts in my mind. Because as we grow older, we tend to move away from move away from anger and hatred. Therefore, when I try to think about someone like that, it becomes sort of negative to me. But otherwise,
I see. Yeah, I would say in that case, then just you could skip over that particular type of person. If trying to conjure up an image of somebody and think of them as a hostile person, if it causes negative tendencies, then you could just stop with the neutral person.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Aya.
Thank you.
Okay, then there's Carla said, yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions now that have come in on the chat. So
Yeah.
I would like to ask them. First, the one is from SX. I don't know who that is. They say, basically, when extending metta to the second category, the teacher or benefactor,
yeah,
can I extend to several people at once, or would it be better to focus on one person at a time? Sort of a group of teachers or one teacher?
Yeah, during this retreat, I'm trying to explain the instruction very much following the classical model, where you choose just one representative of each group. But when I give my regular Wednesday evenings, I give the online group meditation on loving kindness, using the loving kindness. And in those instructions, I say for each category, take a few people in that group. But I say, don't go more than three or four. Yeah, so you could use, well, now we won't have another session. But yeah, when you're doing your daily practice, I would say that you could use a few people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that, Ayadama Deepa?
No, just to say I agree. it's fine
Okay.
to use more than one person. Sure.
All right. The next question just came in from Deborah, and she says, is there a skillful way to work toward extending metta to someone who has hurt or abused us?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, so again, I think that one of the benefits of doing the radiating style of practice is that it's not particularly aimed at individual people. And for that reason, it can become a habit of mind that's helpful in situations where your tendency in the past might have been different. So it's establishing sort of a basis for returning to kindness. And I would say also that it's very, very important not to confuse loving kindness or any of the Brahma Viharas, frankly, with, being completely without any boundaries or without any kind of care for yourself in relationship to other people. So it's not asking you necessarily to put yourself in any kind of danger or any kind of situation that is harmful. It's just saying, see, actually one of the most important things, and I think this also relates to Ravi's question, I think that it's also important to say, see that beings are beings, and they can have extremely difficult behaviors and extremely dysfunctional or unwholesome behaviors, and we can still have some metta and some compassion for them. So without excusing that behavior or without becoming subject to that behavior.
Bhante, did you want to add anything to?
No, that's quite all right. I see that there's one question that was directed through the chat box as a direct message to me, but I want to discourage that in the future because it's difficult for my mind to work at 2 tracks at the same time. It's just that I happen to notice this. So the person asks, can walking meditation be used for metta for people who cannot sit for long periods because of injuries? Yes. In fact, the Satipatthana Sutta says, Titan charan nisinova sayanova yavatasa vigatamido. So whether one is standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, as long as you're awake, develop a mind of loving kindness. That is the divine dwelling here. So you could do it. You could do maybe short periods of sitting, and then you could get up and do walking back and forth, developing the loving kindness. Okay, now I think we're going to have to end the question session.
Yes. Any questions that are pending in the chat box, people, I will write them down and ask them tomorrow as time permits. Thank you. Now I believe it is time for us to move on to the sharing of the merits. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the dedication of the merit is, in a way, it's a kind of variant on loving kindness meditation. And the idea here is that when, according to the Buddhist theory, when we do wholesome activities, in this case, listening to Dhamma, discussing Dhamma, practicing meditation, then we generate wholesome karma. It's the wholesome karma that we call merit. And this wholesome karma or merit can be shared and dedicated to others, particularly, and so we will start with, you could take the sitting position as though you were doing the meditation. And then you can think of any dear relatives of yours who have passed away. And you can imagine the loving kindness or the merits as a kind of light sort of dwelling in the heart, or like a fragrant incense, the fragrance of an incense, and you share or offer up that merit to your departed relatives and friends, inviting them in your mind to rejoice in your merits, and thereby they will share in the merits. They will obtain or participate in the merits by rejoicing in your merits. So first you think of departed relatives and friends, or departed teachers, whether secular teachers or Dharma teachers. Then you can think of maybe friends or relatives alive today who might be ill or in trouble in some form, and you share the merits with them in your mind, mentally inviting them to rejoice in your merits, or conceiving of the merit as being a kind of healing force, a beneficent force spreading out to your friends and relatives in need. And then we think of, there's a class of beings that we call the Devas. These are the gods or lower deities who have the job, the task of protecting the Dharma in the world. And so we share the merits with the Devas, mentally requesting them to protect and to uphold the Dharma. And then we think of the entire population of the earth and spread the rays of your merits over the entire earth, inviting the light of the merit to shine on all beings on earth. And then spread the merits to all beings throughout the universe, inviting all beings to share in the merits. And as you do this, continue doing this, I'm going to recite the verses in Pali for the sharing of the merits. Dukkha pata chani dukkha bhaya, I'm sorry. Akasata cha bhumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam. Akasata cha bhumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanam. Akasata cha bhumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang. Dukkha pata chani dukkha bhaya pata chani bhaya soka pata chani soka hantu sabepi panino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. Then you go sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu,
sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay,
And
then there
bow
are
to
some.
Aya and Bante. Bow
Okay.
to Aya and Bante.
Thank you, dear Bante.
Okay,
Thank
don't
you.
go off yet. Wait, there are some.
Thank you
dear
very
Bante.
much for joining
Aya,
us.
Samadhipa.
Yeah, wait. Please let Carla speak.
Okay, I'm charged with the final reminder for this session today. We want to thank you all for joining us. The teachings, the chanting, and the meditation have together formed a beautiful oasis of peace and love, I think, for us all. The stories of those that were benefited by the BGR projects, I know they touched my heart. I hope they touched yours as well. I hope that you will be inspired by this to donate what you can on our website, www.buddhistglobalrelief.org. Also, you can tell your friends and family who might be looking for a place to donate some money that they have to share. Share with them what we do and let them look at what we do on our website and see if they are interested also in perhaps supporting some of these projects. We thank you so much for coming. The opening session tomorrow will begin at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific. So until then, may you all be well.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Be well.
Thank you. Thank you, Bante.
Thank you for
Okay, thank you.
everything. Thank you,
Thank
Bante. Thank you, Aya. Be well, be safe.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bande.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you, dear
night.
Bante.
Okay.
Tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bhante.
Okay, come back tomorrow. Don't forget, we have 2 more days.
Yes, 4
Yes,
days.
Bante, we will be there.
Beautiful day.
Thank you.
Good health. Good health.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Okay,
night.
Amitabha.
okay, I'll
Thank you,
sign off now.
Bante. Thank you, Aya.
Okay, thank you.
You.
Thank
Thank
you, everyone.
That was great,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Thanks.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, Annie.